A brand new car, a flat tyre. You jack up one corner, and the rear windscreen pops loose and shatters on the pavement. Not a rumour, a documented failure on one of Britain's best-selling cars. 11 legendary marquees: Austin, Morris, Rover, Triumph, Jaguar, MG, Land Rover, merged into a single giant called British Leyland, controlling over 40% of the UK market. It should have been unstoppable. Instead, it became one of the greatest industrial collapses in modern history. Strikes, rust, exploding engines, a steering wheel shaped like a square. By decade's end, British buyers had abandoned their own national brands for good. Here are the 10 cars that defined that collapse, and the one that became a national symbol.
Number 10. Hillman Avenger. We start in 1970 with the Hillman Avenger, Chrysler Europe's answer to the Ford Escort. On paper, it was sound: a conventional rear-wheel drive chassis, a modern 4-cylinder engine, nothing outrageous. But underneath that unremarkable exterior was a car being built on a shrinking budget. At the Brighton-on-Dunsmore plant, paint application was so inadequate that inner door cavities and floor pans were left almost defenceless against British winters and road salt. Within 2 or 3 years, owners were watching their cars rot from the inside out. Interiors cracked in the sun, and while Chrysler's finances collapsed, the Avenger was left to stagnate, an outdated, rusting relic next to sharper European hatchbacks arriving from the continent. But if you think rust was the worst thing British engineers had to offer this decade, you're about to meet a car that was brilliant on paper and self-sabotaged in the boardroom.
Number 9. Austin Maxi. The Austin Maxi, launched in 1969, was the final design from Sir Alec Issigonis, the man who created the Mini. And genuinely, it was ahead of its time. A 5-door hatchback, front-wheel drive, a 5-speed gearbox, seats that folded into a bed. Then corporate compromise stepped in. To save money on tooling, management forced designers to reuse the heavy door stampings from the larger Austin 1800. The result was an awkward, unattractive shape nobody asked for. Worse, the new engine lacked mid-range power, and the cable-operated gearshift became infamous. Drivers genuinely struggled to find the right gear. Built at a strike-prone plant, doors misaligned and cabins leaked. Brilliant space planning, buried under mechanical clumsiness. Now, if a car this clever could fail this badly, what happens when General Motors' own British division starts cutting the same corners?
Number 8. Vauxhall Viva HC. The Viva HC arrived in 1970 as Vauxhall's last standalone British family car before GM folded operations into German Opel platforms. It looked good, American-influenced styling, a real rival to the Cortina and Marina. But the Ellesmere Port plant's quality control was dismal. Surface rust appeared within months. The engine suffered rapid camshaft wear, blown head gaskets, carburettor icing in the cold. Steering racks developed play, clutches failed early. The damage was so severe that GM concluded independent British engineering simply wasn't viable anymore, sealing the end of homegrown Vauxhall design forever. But rust and reliability issues were survivable failures. What happens when the failure isn't a component? It's the entire engine, from the ground up.
Number 7. Triumph Stag. Unveiled in 1970, the Triumph Stag was meant to be Britain's Mercedes-Benz SL, a gorgeous 4-seat convertible with Italian styling. Instead of using a proven Rover V8, Triumph engineers built a brand new V8 by essentially bolting 2 4-cylinder engines together. It was a disaster. The water pump sat high on the block, so even a tiny coolant leak caused catastrophic overheating. The head studs were torqued at the wrong angle, warping the aluminum heads. Timing chains stretched and snapped, sending valves crashing into pistons. Some engines even had leftover foundry sand clogging the cooling passages. Launched right before the 1973 oil crisis, the thirsty, unreliable Stag alienated the wealthy American buyers Britain desperately needed. If an engine could destroy a luxury car's reputation, what happens when the entire concept of the vehicle is built around a legal loophole instead of sound engineering?
Number 6. Reliant Robin. The Reliant Robin from 1973 is where British engineering gets genuinely eccentric. A fiberglass body, a tiny engine, and famously 3 wheels. 2 at the back, 1 steering wheel at the front. It existed to exploit UK tax law. Under 450 kilograms with 3 wheels, it could be driven on a motorcycle license. But that single front wheel meant a dangerously high centre of gravity. Sharp turns or sudden swerves could roll the car onto its side or roof. The front mounting point buckled on rough roads, and the brittle fiberglass body offered essentially no crash protection. The Robin became a global punchline, a car built to dodge tax, not to be driven safely. Now picture a car built under real time pressure, rushed to market in just 18 months using parts pulled from a design over 2 decades old.
Number 5. Morris Marina. Launched in 1971, the Morris Marina was an emergency stopgap commissioned by BLMC chairman Lord Stokes to fight the Ford Cortina. Engineers grabbed the front suspension straight from the 1948 Morris Minor, decades-old technology with virtually no modern body control. Early production models with the larger, heavier 1.8-litre engine were mistakenly fitted with suspension meant for the lighter engine, causing severe understeer that sent test cars sliding off the road. The wiper linkage was designed backward, clearing the wrong side of the windscreen and lifting off the glass at speed. Built at the strike-ravaged Cowley South plant, cars left the factory with missing trim and faulty electrics. It sold in huge numbers at first, Britain's second bestseller in 1973, but its terrible handling and rapid rusting drove fleet buyers straight into Ford's arms. But even the Marina's flaws were mechanical. What happens when a genuinely beautiful, futuristic design is sabotaged by management itself?
Number 4. British Leyland Princess. The Princess, launched in 1975, had one of the most striking silhouettes of the decade, a sweeping, aerodynamic wedge shape designed by Harris Mann. Journalists compared its ride quality to the sophisticated Citroën CX, and then management refused to give it a rear hatchback, fearing it would steal sales from the Austin Maxi, squandering the exact utility its shape promised. Mechanically, it was just as troubled. Undersized front drive shafts snapped under acceleration. The hydrogas suspension leaked fluid, letting the car sag onto its bump stops. Vinyl roof trims trapped moisture and rusted through within 2 years, and failed trunk seals turned the boot into a swimming pool in the rain. By the time BL finally added a hatchback in 1982, renaming it the Austin Ambassador, the public had already moved on. Now we reach the car built to conquer America, and instead became the death of an entire sports car legacy.
Number 3. Triumph TR7. Marketed with the slogan, "The shape of things to come," the TR7 launched in 1975 with radical wedge styling and pop-up headlights explicitly built to capture American buyers. But BLMC ripped out the smooth 6-cylinder engine from the beloved TR6 and replaced it with a far less exciting 4-cylinder. Anticipating US rollover regulations that never even happened, it launched as a hardtop only, no convertible, the very thing Triumph buyers wanted. Assembly at the strike-plagued Speak factory near Liverpool sealed its fate. Headlight motors failed, fuel and water pumps died at near total rates, panels didn't align, and rear differentials seized from improper factory assembly. BL eventually shut Speak down entirely, but the damage was permanent. The historic Triumph TR line never recovered. But even the TR7's failures pale against a car that was supposed to be the industry's redemption story.
Number 2. Rover SD1. When the Rover SD1 debuted in 1976, it looked like Britain had finally gotten it right. A sleek fastback inspired by Ferrari proportions, a rumbling 3.5-litre V8, and enough critical acclaim to win European Car of the Year in 1977. Orders poured in. Then reality hit. Built at a brand-new Solihull assembly hall by a workforce unfamiliar with executive saloon tolerances, the SD1 fell apart. Literally. The automated paint shop flaked off in sheets, exposing bare metal to instant rust. Dashboards warped and collapsed into footwells. Door panels fell off when slammed. Lucas wiring shorted out power windows and central locking. In one infamous press scandal, a single test car burned through 3 engines, 2 gearboxes, 2 clutch housings, and a full wiring harness within just 6,000 miles, spending 2/3 of its life in the repair shop. What should have been Rover's BMW-beating triumph became a cautionary tale. And yet, even that wasn't the bottom. There's one car that combined every single failure on this list into one vehicle, and became the permanent symbol of Britain's industrial decline.
Number 1. Austin Allegro. The Austin Allegro, produced from 1973 to 1981, is where it all comes together. Meant to replace the beloved Austin 1100 and 1300, it arrived with front-wheel drive, an all-new Hydra gas suspension, and a genuinely square steering wheel, nicknamed the Quartic, that drivers hated and the press mocked mercilessly. Then came the structural failure that became legend. The body shell was so lacking in rigidity that jacking up one corner to change a tyre could twist the shell so violently that the rear windscreen popped clean out and shattered on the ground. Park it on a steep curb and the doors could jam shut entirely. The Hydra gas suspension leaked nitrogen gas, letting the car sag onto its bump stops for a punishingly harsh ride and freezing solid in cold weather. Designer Harris Mann wanted a sleek, low shape, but management forced in an oversized engine and heater unit, bloating the bodywork into a shape nicknamed the Flying Pig. Built at Longbridge during the height of labour unrest, cars rusted in the holding yard before they even reached a customer, with leaking brake lines and faulty wiring straight off the line. The Allegro lost money on nearly every unit sold once you factored in warranty claims. It single-handedly wrecked British Leyland's grip on the family car market and pushed the British public, once fiercely loyal to homegrown brands, into the arms of Ford, Vauxhall, and a new wave of Japanese imports for good.
10 cars, 1 story. Brilliant ideas gutted by corporate compromise, industrial chaos, and cost-cutting. Vision without execution is worthless, and British Leyland's market share paid the price, collapsing from over 40% to under 15%. Curious what buyers turned to instead? Check out our video on how Japanese automakers conquered the UK market, the other half of this story.